This is the Vortex Viper PST, a 1:6 power LPVO with one of the brightest reticles in the market. And this is a Monstrum Banshee. So how does a budget LPVO compare to one of the industry's best? Let's find out. Hey, Moondog here. Today we're going to be comparing a Vortex Viper PST to a Monstrum Banshee with a BDC C1 Daylight Bright reticle. Full disclosure, this video is being sponsored by Monstrum Tactical, but what I told them before starting this project was that I'm not going to be pulling any punches or playing favorites for their product. However, these tests end up in the side-by-side comparison is what's going to end up in the video. Now, I have my own opinions about, how these two brands stack up, and I'm sure you do too. Well, let's put some skin in the game. Leave a comment to me right now. Tell me what you think of each of these two brands and how you think these two LPVOs are going to stack up against each other. Now, they're both 1:6 power second focal plane LPVOs, so this should be apples to apples, and this could get interesting. Let's get started. So let's see what you get in the box. In addition to the LPVO, the Viper comes with bra-style lens caps and a sunshade. The Banshee's package includes flip-up lens caps and a pretty nice offset mount. Let's start by taking a look at them side by side. The specs are remarkably similar. Both are 1:6 power second focal plane reticles. Both have 30mm tubes, though the Vortex manages to squeeze in a bit more range of adjustments in the same size tube. They both have similar eye reliefs and physical dimensions, but the Viper is about 6 ounces heavier, which doesn't sound like much unless you mount it onto a rifle and had to carry it over a long distance, where ounces feel like pounds and pounds feel like pain. But let's see if those extra ounces translates to extra performance. Let's take a closer look at their features. The Banshee has a nice large ocular lens with a fairly minimal amount of tube frame around it, affording you less obstruction and giving you a sense of a wider field of view. The overall design of the scope is modern, solid, Spartan. It's budget without looking cheap. The Viper also has a large ocular lens, perhaps a hair bit larger, with a similar thin tube frame around it. The overall design is similarly clean, solid, and Spartan, with the notable difference being the larger diameter turrets. The illumination on both scopes is powered by a single 2032 battery. The Banshee's rheostat offers 6 levels of brightness with an offsetting in between. The Viper's rheostat knob offers 10 levels of brightness with an off in between, though there is a noticeable amount of slop in between each setting. Both scopes have capped, resettable turrets with half MOA adjustments per click. Let's listen to this. Ah, nice and loud. Not super tactile though. I mean, I can feel when it clicks, but it's kind of mushy and there's a bit of slop. And here are the Vipers. Oh, nice. These are audible and tactile positive, and really no slop in between each of the clicks, and each of the clicks is a half an MOA. Finally, the diopter and the magnification ring on the Banshee were smooth but stiff. Fortunately, the Banshee comes with a built-in fin-style throw lever. In comparison, the Viper's diopter and magnification ring were butter smooth, but it really could use a throw lever. Well, that's how they look on the outside, but how are they on the inside? Let's take a look through the glass. We're looking through both scopes at 1 power, which is important because that's the whole point of an LPVO, to see things 1-to-1 with both eyes open. So what you're seeing in the scope should look like your environment in real life. One quick note, the reticle in the Viper looks a little bit grayed out. I don't know if that's just because of the lighting conditions. Both of these were filmed about 15 minutes apart, so lighting conditions can change. The important thing to note is fidelity. Looking at the color of the sky inside of the scope to that outside of the scope in each of the respective scopes, both appear accurate. Another thing to look for is distortion. If we look at the telephone pole in both scopes, we can see that it is straight and lines up with the telephone pole outside of the scope view. If there was significant distortion or fisheyeing, we'd see it as we moved the scope around, and in this case the Viper has a good clean image. Similarly, as we move the Banshee around, it has a fisheye free view. Alright, let's bring up both scopes up to their maximum of 6 power, and let's compare the views of this hilltop 1400 yards away. Now in the Banshee, I'm seeing a little bit of softening around the outer edge of the image, as well as a bit of chromatic aberration. I can see a little bit of a purple tint to the shadows on the trees on the right side of the scope. It's a little bit of a hazy day today, but I can make out just a little bit more fine details through the Viper than the Banshee, but both images are remarkably similar. And though it's small and faint, I can make out the trail marker sign on the top of the hill there, just to the right are the center crosshairs of both scopes. This is a 36-inch tall steel sign on top of a pole, which is a good proxy for an IPSC target at this distance. And this is pretty remarkable that with a 6-power scope, you can even make that out at over a kilometer away. Next, let's take a look at the illumination, and both of these scopes claim to be daylight bright, so let's bring them up to their maximum intensity and see if they truly are daylight bright. And we're now at 10, the maximum intensity setting, and it is pretty darn bright. I'd even say it's red dot bright as I'm moving this around to different backgrounds here. It's a bit of an overcast day, but let's bring it up into the sky where the sun is, and even there I can still make it out. Now the challenge here for the Monstrum BDC-C1 reticle is, can it match the Viper, or is it even daylight bright? And at its maximum setting, yeah, it looks just as bright. I'd say this is red dot bright. And as I move it around, it clearly stands out from the background. And here, let me bring it up to the sky. It's daylight bright. Looking at them both side by side, they are remarkably similar in brightness. The Viper just a tad bit brighter. Or it also could be the camera exposure. If you look at the brick-colored wall, the Banshee's footage looks a little bit darker. In any case, both are truly daylight bright, even in a sunlit sky. So if the Viper is brighter, well, how much brighter do you need it to be? Next, I took the scopes out to the rifle range for some live fire and optical testing. We're going to be looking at these targets from both 50 and 100 yards, and while I walk back out to the 100-yard benches, I want to ask you to take a moment and hit the like and subscribe buttons. Thanks! Alright, let's start by taking a look at those targets from 100 yards at 1 power, and looking through both scopes, the image looks practically the same. Alright, let's bring them both up to their maximum of 6 power. Looking at them both at 6 power, you can see more fine details through the Viper. The speckled background of the backstop is much clearer in the Viper than the Banshee. And the Banshee has visible chromatic aberrations around the outer edge of its image. You can see that in target frame number 6, where I can see a purple fringe. Next, let's move up to 50 yards and take a look at those same targets, again at 6 power. Here I notice a little bit of chromatic aberration as a purple fringe on the outer edge of the Viper's field of view, and this is a bit more pronounced on the Banshee. In terms of fine detail, I can make the bullet holes on the reactive sticker target in both scopes, but only in the Viper can I see 2 additional .22 caliber holes below that sticker target. And on the US Air Force optical resolution chart on the bottom right, I can make out both horizontal and vertical lines down to element 6 in group -2 on the Viper, and on the Banshee I can only resolve down to element 3. Now these are notable differences in optical quality, but relatively minor. I'd feel confident I could aim and hit any of the small diamond targets with either of these 2 scopes. So, the Banshee and the Viper. But before I start talking about both of these optics, I'd like to remind you to hit the like and subscribe buttons right now. Just takes a second, it's absolutely free, but it really helps this channel grow, so I appreciate you taking the time to do that. And I want to thank Monstrum Tactical for loaning both of these optics for me to test, but sorry, not sorry, your Banshee is not better than the Viper. Certainly it is a pretty darn good LPVO, very sharp, very clear, just not as sharp and clear and bright as the Viper. That said, I was surprised by how well it stood up to the Viper in so many other ways. Their reticles, the brightness of their illumination, and even their eye boxes were pretty much identical. I couldn't really tell a difference. In shooting both of them, I was just as accurate and just as fast with both of these LPVOs, so really they are tied in that respect. The biggest differences have to be in the warranty. Both are lifetime transferable warranties, but the Viper also covers accidents and really user stupidity. But the biggest difference has to be the price. The Viper goes for $5.99 on Amazon. The Banshee goes for $149. So the Viper cost 4 times as much as the Banshee, which leads to the question, is it 4 times better? I don't know. Leave me a comment. Let me know what you think. And also let me know if these tests ended up the way you predicted, or there was something surprising to them. Oh, one other way that they are different, I forgot to mention, is in their mounts. The Banshee comes with this pretty legit offset mount. It's got 4 recoil lugs. The Viper does not come with a mount. This is a separate Vortex mount. Costs an extra $100. So really, it costs more than 4 times as much as the Banshee. So it is that. But if you're interested in picking either of them up, and certainly they're both good LPVOs, I'll include product links as well as more information in my full write-up at moondogindustries.com. So definitely check that article out and use those links to help support this channel. Anyway, I want to thank you for taking the time to watch this test. Moondog, out. Hey, I'd like to know what you thought of this video. Leave me a comment or chat with me on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, MeWe, Instagram, or Locals. And if you want to see all of my videos, go to moondogindustries.com.